Every fire leaves something behind. Not always ashes. Sometimes it leaves a man. A man who walked into the mouth of the worst day in American history and came out the other side. This is the burning oath. We don't dramatize. We don't sensationalize. We tell you what happened. Exactly what happened. And tonight, we let one man tell it himself. What you are about to watch is not a recreation. It is not based on a story. It is the story. One man, one building, one morning that changed the world. Pasquale Buzzelli was a 34-year-old structural engineer for the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. He worked on the 64th floor of the North Tower of the World Trade Center. On the morning of September 11, 2001, he kissed his 8 months pregnant wife goodbye and went to work. By 10:28 that morning, the building he was standing in had fallen completely to the ground, and Pasquale Buzzelli was still breathing. September 11, 2001 began the way most days in New York City begin, loud, fast, and indifferent to what was coming. For Pasquale Buzzelli, it was a Tuesday like any other. He got up, he got dressed, he drove from his home in Bergen County, New Jersey, across the Hudson and into the city. His wife Louise was 7 months pregnant with their first daughter. He kissed her goodbye at the door. He had no reason to think that would be the last time. Pasquale stepped into the elevator and pressed 64. The doors closed. Then, the world lurched. The elevator shook violently and dropped several feet before catching. He didn't know it yet.
What is this?
But at 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11, a fully fueled Boeing 767, had just struck the North Tower 12 floors above his office. He felt it in his legs before he understood what it was.
Don't be alarmed. I'm okay.
Louise Buzzelli was home in New Jersey when the phone rang. Pasquale asked her to turn on the TV and find out what was happening. She turned it on and saw smoke pouring from the building her husband was standing in. She told him. She urged him to get out. And then she picked up the crucifix hanging on the wall of their home and held it for the rest of the day. When Pasquale reached the 64th floor, he found roughly 15 co-workers still at their desks. Security had instructed them to stay in place, keep the stairwells clear for the firefighters heading up. It seemed like the right thing to do. These were good people following orders. Pasquale settled in and waited. Downstairs, hundreds of firefighters were already climbing. Most of them would never come back down. At 9:59 a.m., the South Tower collapsed. It took 10 seconds. 110 floors of steel, glass, concrete, and human beings reduced to rubble in the time it takes to count to 10. In the North Tower, Pasquale and his colleagues felt the building shudder. They didn't know what it was. They couldn't see it. But they felt it in every bone, and that's when they decided it was time to move. At some point during the evacuation, Pasquale stopped being a passenger in the story and started being its witness. Here is where we step back. These are his words.
We felt the building shudder, which was actually the South Tower collapsing, but we had no idea. We couldn't see it. We started to make our way down the stairs. The firefighters were coming up past us. I remember looking at them. They knew what they were going into. You could see it, and they kept going up.
On the 22nd floor, they stopped.
There were firefighters on the landing, and they told us to wait. That more help was coming, so we waited. We sat on the stairs. We could feel something was wrong with the building. I had my hand on the wall, and I could feel it. But we waited because that's what you do. You follow the people who know what they're doing.
He called Louise one more time.
I called her again. I was saying my goodbyes. I told her I loved her. I don't know if she fully understood that I was saying goodbye. I tried to keep my voice level, and then the building started to go. I could feel it before I could hear it. A rumbling from above. Tremendous. Like nothing I had ever felt. I got to the 22nd floor when everything started to vibrate, and there was a rumbling from above. I dove into the corner and curled myself into a fetal position. The floor cracked and gave way, and I thought, I'm going to die. I dove into the corner and curled myself into a fetal position. It felt like falling out of a plane. The floor cracked and gave way beneath me. I blacked out. When I came to, I was in total darkness. I was covered in dust. I was in tremendous pain. My foot was destroyed, and I was alive. I couldn't understand it. I was in total darkness. I couldn't see anything. I was covered in everything. Dust, debris. My foot was in terrible pain. I reached around me, and I felt the rubble. And then I heard a voice. A woman's voice. Someone else was alive in there with me. The voice belonged to Janelle Guzman McMillan. She had also been on the 22nd floor. She was also alive. I could hear her, but I couldn't reach her. I called out to her, and she called back. We couldn't get to each other, but knowing she was there, that was something. That meant I wasn't alone in there. And then something happened that no model, no simulation, no physicist has been able to fully explain. When I looked up, I saw blue sky. I couldn't believe it. I was sitting on top of the pile. I was in the open air when I actually saw the footage later of the building falling straight down, and I was in that concentration of forces. It's more miraculous to me that I survived. I was sitting there and I thought, I'm alive. How am I alive? Firefighters Michael Morabito and Mike Lyons came in against orders. The pile was still unstable. They came anyway.
We didn't find much on that pile, but we found exactly what we needed.
Face that he couldn't believe what he was seeing. He said, I got you. That's what I remember. I got you.
Louise was still at home. She had watched the North Tower fall. She had not heard from him since before it happened.
God, Jesus, please just be with him right now. I just kept praying. I just kept holding on.
She thought I was gone. She was 7 months pregnant, and she was sitting there watching the building come down on the television, and she thought I was gone, and I was being carried off the pile. Everyone kept saying how lucky and blessed I was, but the aftermath, particularly with my family, was very challenging. I suffered very badly with post-traumatic stress syndrome and a tremendous amount of guilt as to why I had survived when so many others lost their lives. I wasn't able to experience the joy of my children being born. I lost 14 colleagues who were with me when the tower collapsed. They were the last people I saw, then they were gone. They were the victims, and I was the survivor. So I had a sense of guilt. I just wanted to pretend it didn't happen. I mostly just sat in a chair in front of the TV. I sat by the pool. I couldn't function.
For years, he said nothing publicly. The story was told by everyone except the man it belonged to.
The firemen who rescued me, they talked. It was in the papers, but I couldn't come forward. I was dealing with PTSD and the guilt. I wasn't ready. The story was out there, but I wasn't part of it yet. I wasn't ready to be part of it.
Years after the attacks, Pasquale Buzzelli finally decided to tell his own story. He wrote a book, co-authored with his wife Louise, called We All Fall Down, the true story of the 9/11 surfer. In it, he detailed everything: the morning, the evacuation, the stairwell, the fall, the darkness, the sky, and then the harder part, the years afterward, the PTSD, the guilt, the struggle.
For a long time, I let them tell the story, but this time it's going to be different.
In 2012, on the 11th anniversary of the September 11th attacks, the Discovery Channel aired the 9/11.
For 11 years, I carried this burden alone. The truth needed to come out, regardless of the cost. And we lost so much during that time, but the one thing we never lost, the one thing that kept us going, was the belief that things would get better.
Going up past him, about curling into the fetal position and feeling the floor give way, about waking up under open sky. America finally heard the story from the man who lived it, as you did earlier in this documentary. The story of Pasquale Buzzelli is inseparable from the story of Stairwell B, the one stairwell in the North Tower that survived the collapse with enough structural integrity to preserve the people within it. It was not the largest stairwell, it was not the most centrally located, but something in the geometry of the collapse, the way the floors fell inward and around it rather than through it, created a protected channel through the wreckage. 16 people survived in that stairwell, 16 out of the thousands who were in that building. The Discovery Channel documentary brought in forensic scientists and physicists to examine Pasquale's survival. They constructed models. They ran simulations. What they found was this: the collapse created air pockets, voids within the debris field that moved with the falling debris, A person riding within one of these voids,
We can
protected
model
on
the
the sides by
probability,
structural
yes,
elements,
but we can't account for everything we observe in the voids.
was vanishingly small, but it was not zero. Post-traumatic stress disorder is not a weakness. It is what happens to a normal human nervous system when it is exposed to something that human nervous systems were not designed to survive. For Pasquale Buzzelli, the symptoms were severe and lasting. He could not work for months. He experienced flashbacks, the rumbling, the darkness, the fall. He suffered, by his own account, tremendous guilt. He could not be fully present for the birth of his children, events that should have been the purest joy, because he was still in the stairwell. The turning point, and there was a turning point, came when Pasquale began to reframe the question. Not why did I survive? That question has no answer. But what do I do with the fact that I survived? That question.
Here I am given this gift, and I wanted to make the most of it.
He lost was to actually live, not to exist. To live, to be present, to stop sitting in the chair. While Pasquale Buzzelli was descending Stairwell B, 343 firefighters were going up, 343 men. Every one of them knew, on some level, that the building they were climbing was in danger. They climbed anyway. That is not a metaphor. That is not a recruitment poster. That is a fact. They knew the towers were on fire. They knew the South Tower had already come down, and they kept going up. They carried their hoses and their tools and their radios, and they kept climbing toward the fire, because that is what their oath meant. Pasquale Buzzelli returned to work at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey just 3 months after September 11th. He went back to the same job, structural engineer, back to the tunnels, bridges, and terminals. He has said that survivor's guilt never fully leaves, that there are still moments, still nights. But he has also said, and this matters, that he is living his life, actually living it. He has daughters. He has Louise. He has the gift he didn't ask for and doesn't fully understand, and he is trying to be worthy of it every day. Every time Pasquale Buzzelli tells his story, in a book, in a documentary, in an interview, he is doing something that costs him something. There is no version of September 11th that he can revisit without going back there. The stairwell is always waiting for him at the edge of the telling, and yet he keeps telling it, because the 14 people who were standing next to him cannot
Clear
tell
a path for the
it,
ambulance.
because the 343
Stay with us,
firefighters
Pasquale.
who climbed past him
You are going
cannot
home.
tell it. He is the witness, the last man out, and he owes it to the silence of the others to keep speaking into it. On September 11th, 2001, 2,977 people died. 343 firefighters died climbing toward the fire, and one man fell 15 stories inside a collapsing skyscraper and woke up under open sky. There is no explanation that fully accounts for why Pasquale Buzzelli lived. There is no formula. There is no science that makes it clean. What there is the fact of it. He lived. And because he lived, we have his words. And because we have his words, the 14 people who were standing next to him in that stairwell are not entirely silent. That is what a survivor's story is. It is not a miracle story, though it may be a miracle. It is a responsibility. Pasquale Buzzelli has carried that responsibility every day for over 20 years. The burning oath honors that. This is the truth. All of it. The burning oath exists for one reason, because fire does not lie. Fire does not care about politics or public relations or what version of events makes anyone comfortable. Fire reveals. It reveals what buildings are made of, what systems failed, what decisions were made, and what they cost. And it reveals what people are made of, in the moments when everything is burning and the only choices are the ones you make in the next 10 seconds. This channel tells those stories. The real ones, because the real ones are the ones that matter. On September 11th, 2001, Pasquale Buzzelli went to work. He kissed his wife goodbye. He rode an elevator to the 64th floor. He called Louise from his desk. He descended a stairwell. He curled into a corner on the 22nd floor. The floor gave way. He fell. He blacked out. He opened his eyes. He saw blue sky. He was alive. He is still alive. He has daughters. He has Louise. He has the crucifix that she held all day for him. He has the names of 14 colleagues inscribed in bronze at a memorial he visits. And he has this story, which he has chosen, finally, to carry openly, as a witness, as the last man out. This has been The Burning Oath. Subscribe. Remember, come back.